was reviewed. It was felt that at the present we are following international accounting standards. They make some change, we also make a change. We try to be nearer to them. In 2007, it was felt that instead of following them, why not walk with them? And under that decision, a decision was taken that we shall have convergence with IFRS by 2011. Accounting year commencing on or after 1st April 2011. This decision was taken in 2007. It was also announced by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The decision was taken by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. It was approved by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And all the regulators have been discussing how to implement IFRS in India by 2011. The present thinking is that we shall not apply IFRS to every entity, small and big, every entity. We shall apply IFRS to public interest entities, where the public interest is involved. So in the first stage, we will apply it, we will implement it in phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Instead of applying IFRS to every entity right from the beginning. At present thinking is that in 2011, we cover certain level of entities. Maybe the final decision is yet to be announced by the government. But at present thinking in the government is, and in the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and the Security Exchange Board of India, the thinking is that in 2011 we keep phase 1. And in phase 1 we include all the companies which are included in the Sensex. You know the Sensex of 30 companies. Then Nifty index, 50. So all the companies which are included in Sensex and Nifty index, plus all the companies which have listed abroad, which have issued securities, maybe in the New York Stock Exchange or London Stock Exchange or Singapore Stock Exchange or Luxembourg Stock Exchange, companies which have listed abroad, and the companies above a particular size. The size at present which is being considered is where the net worth is above 1,000 crores. Net worth means capital plus reserves, assets minus liabilities, where the net worth exceeds 1,000 crores. This will come in 2011. Maybe after 2 years, in 2013 we include more companies. The net worth of 1,000 crores may be reduced to 500 crores. So those who are between 500 to 1,000 will enter in 2013 instead of in 11. And maybe in 2014 we include all the listed companies. And even in 2013, net worth above 500, not only the listed companies, whether public or private. If the net worth is above 500, we should include them. This is the thinking at the moment. So in short, the IFRS implementation in India, it is going to be in phases, not applicable to every entity. The decision has not yet been announced because the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has decided. But the Reserve Bank of India has to decide for banking companies what should be the stages, stage 1, stage 2. And the insurance authorities, IRDA, Insurance Regulation and Development Authority, IRDA, they have yet to decide for insurance companies what should be the mode of convergence and mode of application. So the decision has not yet been announced, but this is the thinking at the moment. So what will happen? That to other companies, the existing Indian notified standards will continue. And the companies which come in phase 1, 2011 onwards, they will follow this IFRS. Globally, There are three types of accounting standards. One is IFRS, whole name is International Accounting Standards. Second is US GAAP, and third is the accounting standards of different countries. US GAAP is also accounting standards of a country, but it was having lot of prominence. It was competing with international accounting standards. There was a competition of supremacy. One upman said that which is better, whether international accounting standards or US GAAP. There was a competition. Of late, instead of competition, there is coordination. That why not come nearer, why not converge, why not remove the differences? They are talking. Earlier they were competing, now they are talking. They have long-term projects and short-term projects to come nearer. Globally it is felt that compared to US GAAP, which was considered to be very prominent in the past, because any big company in the world, when it wanted to raise more finance, wanted to go to US capital market and had to follow the US GAAP. But the trends have changed now. Now so many companies are going to Europe and Singapore Stock Exchange. The value of US Stock Exchange has come down because of the financial crisis over there. And now, globally it is felt that if we want to have uniform set of standards in the world, it is better to have IFRS instead of US GAAP. Because in IFRS formulation, there is representation from all the countries, and so it is considered to be more acceptable. And 117 countries have already decided to converge with IFRS. There is one fundamental difference between US GAAP and IFRS. US GAAP is more rule-based. The rules are laid out. Supposing there is a transaction that an asset is given for using to another party, whether it is the operating lease or finance lease, in US GAAP, rules will be laid down that if it covers 90% of life, it is more than 90, it is finance lease, otherwise it is operating lease, or 75%, some limits are laid down. If you are above that limit, you want to follow this accounting. If you are below that limit, you have to do something else, some other accounting. There are two accounting treatments, rules are laid down. It was felt that instead of laying down the rules, it is better to lay down the concept, the principles. And in IFRS, principles are laid down. So supposing revenue recognition, that you have sold the goods, you are a seller of the goods, you have sold the goods. It is around in the last couple of days at the end of the year. 31st March is your year, and you have sold on 30th March or 31st March. Now, whether the sale is complete, whether the sale should be recorded in this year or it should be recorded in the next year, the question of revenue recognition, we have to find out what is the principle. Now, the principle, whether we should look at the form, the legal documents of the transaction, or whether we should look at the substance, the totality of the factors, the circumstances surrounding the transaction, the understanding between the two parties which are there for the transaction, whether to look at the form or whether to look at the substance. It may happen that the documents of title is handed over. So form, sale is complete by 31st March. But substance, one major condition is not yet fulfilled. Party has said that I will accept the purchase after my inspector has examined that it is according to my specifications. If it is not according to my specification, I will not accept. And that inspection is not yet completed on 31st March. Inspection, if it is a minor clause in the agreement, you can forget about it. But the equipment which we have sold is such that it has to be exactly according to those parameters. And the whole agreement says that this is the most important condition. that until it is satisfied that all the specifications are met and approved by the purchaser, we will not accept the responsibility of purchase. This is the agreement. Now, under that, maybe that in the form sale is complete because the documents of title are handed over to the purchaser. But in substance, sale is not complete. We have to look at the importance of that condition. That condition may be important if it is some, say, chemical plant is being sold, and unless the plant is commissioned, it cannot be considered as sold. If it is like air conditioner, that it is already tested in the factory, and you have just to plug in your premises, inspection may not be very important. There we may not give that much importance. So we have to look at the substance. Now, IFRS lays down the principle that substance is more important than the form. Look at the overall transaction, understanding between the seller and the purchaser. The legal ownership you are transferring by transfer of title of documents of title. But the beneficial ownership, when does it pass to the customer? If the value of that item goes up, who will get the appreciation, seller or purchaser? If there is loss, by and there is no insurance cover, so if there is a loss of the item and there is no insurance taken, who will get the loss, seller or the purchaser? So beneficial ownership, what is the understanding between the parties? What is the substance of the transaction? That is more important than the form. Principle is laid down. And compared to US GAAP, IFRS lays down the principles rather than laying down the rules. And it is felt that rules can be circumvented by structuring your transaction in such a manner that you can circumvent the rules. But if the principles are laid down, it becomes the responsibility of the preparer and the auditor and to justify that the principles are followed.
Sir, if I have a question for you. If the principle is laid down, is it open to interpretation?
Yes, but some guidance is available on that. But after all, you have to look at the facts and circumstances of your case and then decide the accounting treatment. That is what the principle says. So, some human mind, the interpretation can play a role. So, all over the world, there is a move towards convergence with IFRS. 117 countries have decided. India also decided that we shall converge with IFRS. We shall examine that what IFRS means, to what extent it differs from the Indian standards. Now, before we go into the specifics, let us look at the general concepts. Is a general rule in IFRS, there is more importance given to the fair value than the historical cost. Fair value is given more importance. Focus is on fair value rather than historical cost. In India, in Indian standards, we are more influenced by the historical cost. Now, which is better, fair value or historical cost? There are advantages and disadvantages. Historical cost is better from the point of view of reliability. There is certainty. There is no ambiguity. There are no two opinions because the cost is incurred. So historical cost is better from the point of view of reliability. More reliable, certainty, no uncertainty, no debate, no controversy, better. Fair value is more relevant to the user of the financial statements. He wants to know what? Does he want to know the cost which you incurred once upon a time, or he wants to know the fair value of the business as of today? the user of the financial statements is interested in fair value. Now, this is a very difficult fight between cost and fair value. There are some apprehensions and concerns about fair value. Mainly there are two concerns. One concern is that it is difficult, sometimes in many circumstances, it is difficult to find out the fair value. Cost is easy because you have incurred the cost, you know it from your books of accounts. Fair value, it is difficult. If there is an active market, you may be able to find out what is the market value prevailing. That may be considered as the fair value. But there can be number of products, number of financial instruments, number of items where active market may not be there. So how to find out fair value is a problem. And the second problem with fair value is the volatility of fair value. That fair value may go up and may go down, and that will affect your results, financial results. So those who are advocates of historical cost feel uncomfortable with fair value, that in many situations it is difficult to find out the fair value. And even if you can find out, the volatility affects your results, ups and downs. What is the solution? Because it is difficult to find out fair value, should it be ignored, or fair value should play an important part in the preparation of financial statements? Globally, it is felt that if it is difficult to compute fair value, let us try to improve the guidance on fair value. That how to find out fair value. If there is no active market, what to do? Even when there is no active market, if you know what you are going to get in future, you can find out the discounted value, the present value, and that can be the fair value. Supposing you have bought a government security, 100 rupees face value, you have bought at 92 rupees. That government security is going to mature after 3 years. You are going to get 7% interest for the next 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, it will mature, you will get 100 rupees. You have spent 92. Cost is 92. What you are going to get over a period of time, you know, definitely, that you will get 7 rupees every year. And at the end of 3 years, you will get 100 rupees. What you are going to get, you discount at your normal rate of return. That what is the rate at which you are borrowing money, at which you are investing money. Supposing you are borrowing at 10%. Then whatever you are going to get, 7 rupees for next 3 years and 100 rupees at the end of 3 years, you discount at 12 at the factor of 12. Find out the present discounted value. Supposing it comes to 97. 97 is the fair value. What is the market value? We need not find out in these circumstances. Supposing we go to market and find out the market value is 95. Our cost is 92. Market value is 95. But the discounted value of the future proceeds comes to 97. We can value at 97 the discounted value. That is considered to be the fair value. Fair value is not necessarily the market value. Fair value is not necessarily the market value. It can be the discounted value of what you are going to get. Now,
sorry to interrupt, but that is in case of, say, investment in debt. But what in case of property or equity?
yes. Supposing your property or whether if you have invested in equity shares, you don't know what you are going to get. So it is, now there you have to go to market value. If there is no market, there is lot of guidance given in that you find out similar product. If it is a market, you try to find out. If your product you don't know the market value, on your product what you are getting, what is that you find out, compare it with other products where the market value is available and try to find out the deemed value, the market value. And if you can't find out at all, cost can be considered as a surrogate of fair value. So there is lot of guidance given on how to find out fair value when there is no market value available. The G20 leaders, the leaders of the big 20 countries met 3 times in last 1.5 years, and they discussed this problem of economic crisis, and they also came to the conclusion fair value has difficulties, but fair value cannot be ignored, and guidance on finding out fair value should be improved. That is the decision which was taken, and that is why the accounting standards are being revised to make them more simple and remove the complexity. Even the accounting standard on financial instruments, IS 39, is being revised, and IFRS 9 has been issued for part of the revision. Anyway, so what we are discussing is that fair value has some difficulties, but what is relevant to the user? User wants the fair value. And second principle, that when in India, when we prepare the financial statements, we look more at the stability in the profit and loss account. If profits are volatile, profits are increasing and decreasing, we feel, oh, something is wrong. We consider is a financial virtue if stability is maintained in the profits. Globally, it is felt that balance sheet should be transparent. Balance sheet should reflect the fair value on the date of the balance sheet. And because the balance sheet, assets and liabilities have to be valued at fair value, because of that, if there is impact on the P&L account, let it be there. Even if there is volatility in the profits, let it be there. But the balance sheet should be right. That is the global thinking at the moment from the point of view of transparency. Of course, rules are laid down that supposing unquoted equity shares, you have invested in equity shares. Equity shares, fair value has gone up. In your balance sheet, whether you want to record the equity shares at the cost or you want to record at fair value. And answer is given, the user is interested in fair value. So equity shares should be valued at fair value. Because of that fair value valuation of equity shares in the balance sheet, if there is appreciation or depreciation, say there is appreciation, fair value has gone up, that appreciation should it go to profit and loss account, income statement? Answer is no. Profit is not yet realized. Don't take to profit and loss account. There is another concept, other comprehensive income, which is second part of P&L account. This type of profit is recorded in the other comprehensive income instead of in profit and loss account. So in IFRS, there are 2 statements, comprehensive income and the other comprehensive income. Comprehensive income is like profit and loss account. And other comprehensive income, some adjustments which are made. You want fair value in the balance sheet, but you don't want in the P&L. Then take to the other comprehensive income. It is like our revaluation of fixed assets. See, in India, some companies revalue the fixed assets. What they do, fair value of the fixed asset has gone up, they are revalued. Value is increased in the books, fixed assets. But that appreciation we don't want to take to P&L account because the asset is not yet sold. In that case, it is taken to revaluation reserve. So it is brought into the balance sheet but not in the P&L. Like that, there are a number of accounting treatments in IFRS where the fair value is brought into the balance sheet but not taken to the income statement, the profit and loss account. So in IFRS, what is new compared to the Indian standards? Number 1, there is greater emphasis on fair value. Number 2, there is greater emphasis on balance sheet compared to P&L. Number 3, we must always, if some amount is to be received in future or to be paid in future, after a point of time without interest. You must find out the discounted value, the present value. So if there is an agreement and you are going to get 100 crores rupees under the agreement after 3 years, without interest, you are not going to get any interest. 100 crores, there is an agreement already signed, sealed, delivered. Agreement says we are going to receive 100 crores after 3 years. On the balance sheet date, it is a receivable. Agreement says you will receive 100 crores. But when? After 3 years. Will you get interest on 100 crores? No. In that case, that 100 crore which you are going to get after 3 years, on the balance sheet date, can you say that the fair value is 100 crores? No. The discounted value. So find out appropriate rate of discount. Discount it. Supposing the discounted value comes to 72 crore, then instead of 100 crore, 72 crore is the fair value of the receivable in your balance sheet. This is very important in IFRS. What is this? Time value of money. Time value of money. If somebody is going to give you 100 crores after 3 years, yes. But when? After 3 years. On the balance sheet date, as of today, what is the value? Is it 100 crores? Answer is no. It is much less, discounted value. And that value is the fair value. So at many places we find out fair value not by going to the market. Without going to the market, we find out the fair value by just finding out what we are going to get when we discount, and that discounted value becomes the fair value. So the time value of money is very, very important. Then, as we discussed while discussing revenue recognition, substance over form. That if in a particular transaction, the legal language tells you something, but the overall facts and the circumstances of the transaction give you some other indication, what should you follow, form or the substance? And as we discussed, substance is given more importance. Even Indian standards, if you look our Indian standard number 1, it says that while selecting accounting policies, we have to keep 3 concepts in mind. One is substance over form, second is prudence, and third is materiality. Prudence, substance over form, and materiality. So substance over form is accepted in India also, but we don't follow it very strictly. For example, if a company has announced VRS scheme that we will give voluntary retirement to the employees, we will give some extra benefit if they retire early instead of retiring at the normal age. So if incentives are given for early retirement. Now, when the scheme is announced, some estimate is made by the management that how many employees are likely to accept, what will be the likely liability, how much VRS compensation we will have to pay for those who opt for VRS. Now, supposing a company announces the scheme, but when your balance sheet date comes, when you are finalizing the accounts, on the date of balance sheet, some employees have given the application, some employees have not yet given application for VRS. Under Indian standard, you will go by how many employees have given the application for VRS, what has been accepted by the management, where it has become a legal obligation before the balance sheet date, where it has happened, you provide, otherwise not. This is Indian standard. You go by the legal obligation on the balance sheet date. Under IFRS, the moment you have announced VRS scheme, there is a constructive obligation. You must find out, can we withdraw it without difficulty? If yes, then no problem. Then there is no constructive obligation. But if the circumstances indicate that now you can't withdraw the scheme, valid expectations are created in the minds of employees, and whatever is the estimated likely liability, constructive obligation has arisen